I wanted to understand, what is it that our ancestors have known in their time that we've forgotten in ours? Perhaps even more, what did our ancestors know that we're only beginning to understand? And this is important to us today because of the world we live in. We live in a time when we were being inundated with technology in our lives and proposals to put technology into our bodies. What our ancestors said to us very clearly was that we are the technology. And I want to show you from a scientific perspective precisely what that means. How can we be considered as a technology? And let me begin with a story. I live in a remote area in the high desert of northern New Mexico. In 1986, I was hiking through a remote canyon, an archaeological site now that is known as Chaco Canyon, a United Nations UNESCO World Heritage Site. And I happened to meet a native man on the trail. And we began to talk, and he told me a story. Now, let me share his story with you. He said, long ago, the people of this land lived very differently than they do today. They lived closer to the earth. They understood who they were, and they remembered their history. They remembered their ancestry. He said, then something happened, and even the elders don't know exactly what it was. He said, but they forgot who they were. They began to lose the memory of who they were, and they became lonely. And they so longed for the connection that their heart knew they used to have. They began to build machines outside of their bodies that mimic the connections that they used to have from inside of their bodies. He said, we live in that world today. All the things that you see in the world around us, from radar systems and the internet to artificial intelligence to high-speed computers, as good as they are, every one of them mimics the functions that we already perform inside of our bodies. And he said, we will continue to clutter our external world with all of these machines until one day we remember who we are. And on that day, we let the machines go and we awaken to the deep truth of what it means to be fully human. We awaken the human blueprint within us. Let me just give you an example. You know, when I do live events, a lot of young people come to me during the breaks and they ask questions. And they say, Mr. Braden, what about computers? What about AI? Aren't they superior to what we are today? Well, they're obviously fast. Computer chips are definitely fast. They are definitely efficient. But I want you to look at this. Scientists at Stanford University did an experiment. It's a mind blower. They compared a human brain to a microprocessor. And the bottom line, I'll give it away right now, they found that the human brain not only meets, but it exceeds the capacity of the microprocessor. Let me show you how this works. This was done at the Salk Institute, Stanford University. They compared a human brain to a microprocessor. And my first question is, how do you even do that? How do you make that comparison? Here's what they did. They equated the synapses in the brain, the little space between the neurons, the gap where we see the electrical spark in science fiction movies and we see it in biology movies, that little gap with the spark, they equated that with the transistors on a microprocessor. Interestingly enough, there's about the same number of synapses in the human brain as there are transistors on today's microprocessors. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So they're making that comparison. I know you don't want to see the complex and very technical study. So I'm going to give you the bottom line. A computer right now tops out at about 6 billion instructions per second. Guess what? The human brain tops out at about 100 billion instructions per second. The conclusion to this study done by the Salk Institute is that the human brain possesses 100-fold more information than a modern microprocessor, even using multiple cores. All right? And this is just one example. Our brain is scalable. Here's what I mean by that. Computer chip, is it fast? Yes. Is it efficient? Yes. Is it scalable? Well, the top end of a computer chip will always be limited by the physics of the silicon. The atoms of silicon are only going to allow information to move so quickly. So we say that the computer chip, its scalability is finite. It can only go so far and hits a dead end. Now, what is the top end of a human brain? Oh, the answer is we don't know. And we don't know because every time we push against what we believed were the limits of a human brain, the brain does what human brains do. It morphs and it adapts. And it opens a whole new vista of potential every time we reach what we thought was a limit. That limit gives way to new expressions in the human brain. What is our top end? We don't know. It appears we don't have one because we will always morph and adapt. And this is just one example of when I say to you that we meet and in many cases exceed the potential of the machines that we're being asked to put into our bodies. We're scalable beyond any known limits, but look what else we are. We're self-replicating. Our cells know exactly what to do to recreate themselves. We're self-regulating. We're self-diagnosing. We're self-healing. We're self-actualizing, and no machines can do that. The average human has about 50 trillion cells in the human body, give or take some cells. A lot of people don't know is every one of those cells is a little tiny electrical circuit. It's not a metaphor for a circuit. It is actually literally a circuit. And what you're seeing on your screen is a diagram for the human cell. It has an input. It has an output. We have portions of our cells that function as transistors and resistors that massage the information in the cells. Every cell generates about 0.07 volts of electrical potential. And you say, well, that's not very much. And I agree with you, but let's do the math. 50 trillion cells times 0.07 volts. Look at this. We're talking about 3.5 trillion volts of electrical potential in your body and my body. What would it mean if we could bring that all together, apply it to our own healing, or apply it to super memory, super learning, super cognition, longevity, immune response? Well, you can. And that's why I'm talking to you about these things right now, but it doesn't stop there. Every cell in our body functions just like electrical components, like transistors and resistors and capacitors. And if you're a young person watching this, and you see those pictures of transistors and resistors and capacitors, and you say, what in the world are those? Then the next picture on the screen answers that. That is a microprocessor. That's what they look like today. On that microprocessor are all the transistors and resistors and capacitors that used to be big surface-mounted components. They're all miniaturized. They're on that little circuit right now. So we're all talking the same thing. Every cell in your body emits photons of light, and you can actually see the light. You can measure it under certain conditions. We receive photons of light. Light is information. You and I are communicating with this world. The question is, do we know what we're saying? We're sending out information, we're receiving information. Every cell stores and retrieves information just like a computer chip. Every cell functions like blockchain technology. And if that sounds familiar to you, it's because the new financial systems like Bitcoin actually mimic the way that information is stored in human DNA. I know that's new for some people. Let me share a little bit with you what that means. In the cell, every cell of your body, of the over 8 billion humans that live on this planet, there is a record of every successful genetic transaction that our species has ever had. Now listen to the way that record is described. It's transparent, It is immutable. It is secure. And if those words sound familiar, those are precisely the words used to describe blockchain technology in general, Bitcoin specifically, because that technology mimics the way information is stored and distributed in the human body throughout all of the cells. I could go on and on with this, but you get the point. Now, where this gets really, really interesting is 5 of these epigenetic triggers involve the human heart. So when we access the intelligence in our heart, we're accessing 5 epigenetic triggers. Those are thought, feeling, emotion, breath, and focus. When we create a focus in our bodies, and we have very specific kinds of emotions and thoughts and feelings, what we know is that we begin to change our biology very, very quickly. It impacts longevity enzymes. It impacts our immune response almost immediately. It impacts our cognition, super memory, super learning, super cognition. 1991, scientists made a discovery that surprised a lot of people. And what they found is the human heart contains about 40,000 special cells. They're called sensory neurites. Little brain in the heart. And that little brain creates a neural network in the heart. And listen to what I'm going to say to you about this. Your heart's neural network, it thinks independently of your cranial brain. It remembers independently. It feels independently from the cranial brain. What does that mean? It means every experience that you and I have ever had, we interpret it in 2 different places. All of the joy, all of the ecstasy, all of the hurt, all of the trauma in the heart and in the brain. This helps us to understand we attempt to heal our hurt and our trauma. Rarely do we attempt to heal our joy and our ecstasy. You don't have people say, hey, I've got so much joy in my life, I think I need some healing. You don't hear that. But we do attempt to heal our trauma and our hurt. And when we do it through talking about it, it can help. And it helps in the brain. If we haven't addressed the language of the heart, that healing may feel incomplete. Now you know the reason. Because the heart feels, remembers, and thinks very, very differently from the way the brain feels. The heart communicates with the field. The heart accesses all of our divinity, all of our divine processes. So what the science has found today parallels the traditions and the techniques of some of our most ancient and cherished spiritual traditions when it comes to accessing the heart through our soft technology, through the epigenetics. How do you do this? I'm going to share with you 3 basic steps. And once we have this experience, I want you to see how easy it is, but I also want you to note how it feels in your body to create this kind of a coherence. Now, if you have done this before in a room with a lot of people, and you're doing it now in a room where you're alone, I'm going to tell you that it's going to feel different. The difference isn't right, wrong, good, or bad. It's simply that you are alone with your heart rather than combining the hearts of hundreds or thousands of other people. It still is effective. So the 3 steps, we're going to shift our focus, we're going to shift our breathing, we're going to shift our feeling. And what I'd like to do is invite you to find a place that's quiet, that's comfortable, that's safe. And let's do this together right now. Okay, so what I'm going to invite you to do, now that you found a place that's safe, it's quiet, I invite you to close your eyes and allow your awareness to move from your thinking mind to your feeling heart. I'm going to do this with you right here. If it helps to touch your heart center in a way that's comfortable for you, Your awareness will always go to the place in your body where you feel the touch. I'm just using a single finger, 2 fingers. Okay. That's the first step. The second step, I'm going to invite you to slow your breathing just a little bit, slower than you would typically breathe. Let's do 4 counts on the inhale and 6 counts on the release. The key is to release for a period of time, a little bit longer than the inhale. So with your focus in your heart, I'm going to invite you to begin your breath with me. First breath, inhale, begin. And release. Just feel your body settle into that space. Inhale. And release. Just feel the shift in your body. Inhale once again. And release. And to the best of your ability, continue breathing just about that pace, as if your breath is coming from your heart while you hold the focus in your heart. And third step. The third step, I'm going to invite you to have a feeling because you choose to have the feeling, regardless of what the world around you is showing you. What the scientists have found is that the experience of gratitude works pretty much universally for everyone across all languages. So the best of your ability, if you can feel the feeling of gratitude for anything or anyone, I'm doing the same thing right now. Just feel that gratitude as you continue breathing a little slower from your heart with the focus in your heart center. What you're doing is creating a state in your body that your body knows very well. When you were a baby, this was your natural state. You lived in coherence until you were conditioned out of the coherence by the world around you. So if this feels familiar to you, this may be the reason why. What the science has found is that a minimum of 3 minutes of this simple coherence will create the effects that will last up to 6 hours. 100% increase in the DHEA level in the body, the precursor to every hormone in your body. A decrease in the stress hormone, cortisol, by 23% after only 3 minutes. And all you're doing is feeling, focusing, and breathing. That is a technology. Okay. I'm going to invite you to take one more breath, deep breath, inhale. And as you release that breath, become present in the space you find yourself. Gently begin to open your eyes. So first I'm going to ask you, how did that feel in your body? How many of you had a little tear that came to your eye? And if you did, don't be embarrassed to say that you did, because it doesn't necessarily mean that you're sad. I see this happen all the time. It could be, but typically it's because your body is remembering what this experience is like and is saying, welcome home. Thank you. I'm happy that we're having this experience. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're lighting up hurt or pain. It's a sense of gratitude to your body for creating this healthy experience. Now, this was a very brief experience. I wanted to give you just a sample of how simple this user interface is. Remember, soft technology is not computer chips, chemicals, and hard wires. You're more than that. You're neurons, your ion potentials moving across cell walls, your cell membranes, and you regulate this soft technology through thought, feeling, emotion, belief, breath, focus, movement. Wow, what a powerful, beautiful, and simple technology.